Welcome to the Rockabye Revenue Podcast with me, Abby Watson. I'm a mum of 4 and a business strategist, and I train people to become hypnobirthing teachers. In the last decade, I've built a thriving baby business that grew beyond my wildest dreams. This podcast is for you if you run a business or dream of running a business in the birth and baby industry. You want to change lives whilst making more money. I'm talking about creating sustainable income whilst being present for the people that matter most. I believe for our baby businesses to have the impact we desire, we must be rewarded. On this podcast, expect me to share actionable strategies without the jargon. I've been where you are. I've built a business while raising 4 little ones, and now I'm here to help you turn your passion into profit while creating the life you've always dreamed of. So let's get started. Hello, lovely one. Welcome back to another episode of the Rockabye Revenue Podcast. Now, I am here to talk about whether it's time for you to increase your prices. So we're going to talk about the signs that it might be time to up those prices. We're going to talk about the mindset stuff that can come with this, like the things that can hold us back from declaring that our prices are rising. And ultimately, as well, how to go about it that actually benefits your business rather than impacting it in a negative way. So firstly, the reason that I want to talk about this today is because actually it's something that I am going to do myself. So after a while of being at the same price, I have reached the point where my prices to train people to become hypnobirthing teachers absolutely need to increase, and they will be increasing. So you've heard it here first. So if you are currently sat on the fence about training with me, this is your time, because very soon the prices will be going up. It has been a while since I have increased my prices, and that is why, or one of the reasons, I'm choosing this increase. So how do you know if it's time for you to change your pricing and increase it? Now, I know what you'll be thinking. You'll be thinking, oh, but I can't, because actually it might impact my bookings, and actually I might find that suddenly I'm earning a lot less because I have increased my pricing and actually I've got a lot less bookings. Now, I don't believe that will be the case for you at all. So let me go through some signs that it is the time to increase your pricing. So it might be that you are fully booked. So your diary is full. So you have an abundance of clients. You are in demand. So therefore, it shows that it is a great opportunity to increase your pricing, because you are at the point where you have that sustainability. Or maybe it's actually that maybe you're fully booked, or maybe you're not. But either way, there's some resentment. So when you are delivering your service, there is some feeling inside that actually you're not sure it's worth your while, you know? Actually, it's so much hassle for what you are getting in return that there's an element of resentment. If that is the case, even a tiny bit, it's definitely time to increase your prices. And certainly, if those feelings are making you on the verge of burnout, it's definitely time. Or maybe it's none of those things, but you know you are over-delivering. You are giving such a high level of service, but actually your pricing isn't matching it. So that's one of the other reasons that I am going to be increasing my prices. For a very long time, I was one of the highest prices in the industry. So for my hypnobirthing training, it was always a few extra £100 to train with me rather than some of the other brands. And I felt totally confident in that because I knew I was doing what a lot of hypnobirthing training companies were not doing. I wasn't just telling people how to teach the course. I was giving them teaching skills. I was giving them incredible resources. I was giving them ongoing support without ongoing fees. Now, what I've noticed is that actually quite a lot of other hypnobirthing teacher training companies have now increased their prices, and we're kind of on a level playing field. And if I am, with certainty talking about my services being, this is not about criticising anybody else, but if I'm talking about how incredible my services are, yet my price doesn't match that, are people going to believe it? So if you feel like your service that you are offering is so blooming good, but your prices sound a bit basic, again, it's time for you to increase your pricing. Or maybe it's that you work with people, you work with your clients, and they say to you, blooming hell, you need to increase your prices. That was such a bargain. I can't believe what we got for our money. And again, that's what I hear from some of my students. They'll say, oh my gosh, it was such incredible value. I can't believe everything that I get. They're basically saying to you, this is too cheap for what you are giving me. So if that is some of the feedback that you are receiving, your clients are basically telling you you could absolutely increase your pricing. Or maybe it's none of those things, but you notice you are attracting the wrong clients. So maybe your low pricing is actually attracting people. They're not very committed. They're quite happy to part with that money and they're not actually fully engaged with what you are doing. As I've said a number of times on this podcast, people need skin in the game, and we think we're giving them skin in the game by charging them something, but actually if that something is not very much to them, they've not really got skin in the game. So if you feel that you are attracting the wrong clients, again, raising your prices might be a super thing to do. And then the final reason, again, it might be that you've done none of those apply to you, but it's simply that your prices have been the same for a long time. You've been doing what you do for a few years, and maybe you haven't increased your pricing in the last couple of years. Well, it's time for a price increase, because let's face it, if you worked for someone, if you were employed, you would most likely receive a yearly price increase. You would most likely receive a yearly wage increase, at least, because inflation rises, but also maybe because you get even better at your job. So in my former life as a secondary school teacher, for our first 5 years teaching, every year we got a pay increase, okay? Because, it was showing commitment to the job. We were expanding, our experience was growing. And of course, there'd also be the fact that actually inflation was rising too. So there might be one or a few of those signs that a price increase is what you should do. Now, I hear you when it feels scary. Of course it feels scary, because if everything is currently going well, there can be a feeling of, I don't want to rock the boat. Maybe this price increase is going to be the thing that takes away all the clients, Which, come on, when you've just heard me say that, you are probably thinking, no, that's not true. But that's what your mind might say to you. Or maybe, on the other hand, if actually you could still do with more clients, you might think, by staying cheap, I'm going to actually get more. But it doesn't always work like that. Think about some of those signs that I talked about. If you're over-delivering, if you're sharing how fantastic your course is, but actually your price does not match it, are people going to be booking on? No, because they probably don't believe you. They probably don't believe you that your course is that great. They probably think you're exaggerating quite how good it is. Okay, so you might actually find that an increase actually increases the number of bookings that you get to. And it might attract more people, like I said earlier, that are more committed to what you do. Now, again, another thing that might come up in your mind about this might be, but my clients, they can't afford anymore. And I want to keep my services super accessible. So by increasing my prices, I'm becoming inaccessible. Suddenly, no one will be able to afford me, and that will be the end of my lovely business. Well, come on. Think about this from your perspective. If you've ever seen a service that you absolutely need and you know you are going to benefit from massively, whether it is that price or a small percentage more, probably isn't going to be make or break. Equally, we're always going to be inaccessible for some people. Whatever you charge, you are always going to be inaccessible to some people. And actually, if you charge well, you are more likely to be able to offer things like goodwill discounts, scholarships, subsidised places, because you are able to meet your own needs first. As well as that, you are the heartbeat to your business. You are the absolute power behind it. And if you are depleted, there is no business. If you are depleted and you are not being rewarded, your business is unsustainable and you're not going to be offering your service to anyone. So for sustainability and to be there to be offering your services to the future bookings, you've got to make it sustainable right now. You've got to be rewarded. And actually, that price increase might just do that. Now, in my experience, every blooming time I've increased my prices, I've had a little freak out before. Of course I have. I'm human. And of course I've said things like, oh my gosh, this might be the end of the good times. All the bookings are going to suddenly disappear. Of course I have. What has been the reality though? Well, the reality has been that actually it never made a difference. My bookings maintained. And actually, I felt well rewarded for my time. And actually, it enabled me to enhance what I offered, because I had the budget. I had the money. I was able to invest in support for myself, again, to make what I offer sustainable. If you believe you offer an incredible service, you're blooming doing your potential clients a disservice if you're not being rewarded properly, aren't you? Think of all the incredible humans in your community that do great work. Imagine if you heard they'd packed it in because they were a bit like, I'm not sure it's worth it anymore. Wouldn't you be more pleased if a few months before they decided to raise their price a little bit? I know I would, And if you do lose people, the chances are you would have lost those people anyway. And there will be new people, So if you are deciding to increase your prices, how are you going to do it effectively? Well, this really comes down to what type of business you offer. So for example, if your business is offering things like hypnobirthing courses or doula services, most likely you don't really have many repeat bookings. They pay for a service and then you get bookings from them when they refer friends to you. But ultimately, it's not like they are coming back to you regularly, okay? Or on the other hand, you might be someone that aims to keep the same customers in your business. So perhaps, for example, you teach baby classes and you get a new mum coming with their baby, and ideally you want them to stay 3 terms at least. Okay, so they are repeat bookings. So depending on what type of business, I guess really depends like how you go about this. So if you don't have repeat bookings, this is less of an issue. You know, nobody's going to be like, oh, last month you were charging XYZ. They don't know. They don't know what the clients that booked last month paid, you know? So really, it doesn't really matter. Now, how could you use that though to your advantage? Well, you could let them know that a price rise is coming, you know? So you could let potential clients know that from a certain date, your price will be increasing to whatever. And that means that it gets those people that are sat on the fence making a decision. People will sit on the fence longer if there's no reason to act now. But if you are saying, if you book your course before this date, actually you'll get it at this price because after that point, my prices are rising, you will find that those people who were about to book, but a bit like, oh, I'll wait around, they book. So it does your business a favour. Yeah? And then after that date, you just change your prices. Simple. Nobody really knows. Now, if you are someone who does rely on repeat bookings, there's a couple of ways you could go about this. Now, if you did feel like, oh, I'm not sure how my current clients would feel about this, and you wanted to go in gently, what you could do is you could announce a price increase, but maintain it for your current clients. So you could say, if you are already someone using my services and you want to renew classes for next month, I will honour your original price. Again, blooming great for business, isn't it? Because you've given them this almost perk and they know that if they kind of go away and like go elsewhere and come back later, that's not going to be honoured. You know, so there's a benefit for them making the decision to book next term right now, okay? And then you simply increase the prices to anyone new, okay? So that's one way of doing it, okay? Another way is simply being honest, you know? Saying, I just want to let everyone know about a price increase starting on this date. As my business evolves, as my classes are enhanced, my pricing is evolving too. Simple as that. And you might like absolutely poop yourself sending that email, and you might just get lots of emails coming back saying, good on you. Of course, I'm more than happy to pay the extra. You know, I've had loads of people increase their pricing on me, and very rarely have I ever felt like, ooh, now I'm not paying. Because if I really value what they offer, I am more than happy to pay that extra. So for example, my cleaner recently got in touch and she said, you know, from this date, prices will be increasing to this amount. So she'd increased the prices 10%. My immediate response was, blooming good on you. And I was like, yeah, absolutely, changed my bank transfer for you. And she messaged back and she was like, oh gosh, I hope everybody else is going to be okay about it. And I said, of course they will, because you're blooming great at what you do. Why would they want to lose you over a few extra quid, you know? That'd be bonkers. So hear me when I say, the stories you are telling yourself about how people will respond are probably just stories. Okay, so that's how you can do it. And if there is anything that resonates in this episode and any of those signs that I shared with you earlier, you are like, yep, that is me. Do it. It's really not that deep. Like sometimes we make these things such big things, but actually it's really not. Like how many times do we see price increases and actually we don't even notice, you know? slight price increases in the supermarket. Yeah, we notice like after a while when our whole food bill has increased, but on the whole, the cost of individual things rising, so many people are not cross about that. And I realise that me saying that really does come from a place of privilege. I know that. And if my mum was listening to this, she'd be like, Abby, remember where you're from. When you were a kid and we were poor, that's not the truth. And yeah, I get that. So please let me acknowledge my privilege there. Okay. And let me also reflect back to you that actually many of your clients will have that privilege too. Many of your clients might be expectant parents that are buying bugaboos, that are driving fancy cars, that are on the waiting list for, incredible other things going on, So be careful of the stories you are telling yourself. And ultimately, let me go back to the key message of this whole episode. Your business has to be sustainable to keep having the impact. And increasing your pricing might just do that. If you haven't increased your prices in a long time, oh my gosh, if you worked for someone and they'd not increased your salary for that length of time, how would you feel about your boss? So take this moment now to think about, am I due a price increase? And if so, how am I going to do it? How am I going to do it to get the biggest benefit out of it? So you don't have to just change your website. You could make it coming soon, like I said earlier. So it really helps those people see that if they book now, there's an extra incentive. You might honour current inquiries or current people that are already booked on your services. Ask clients. It's up to you. It's your business. It's your rules. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. And as always, keep on changing lives, and I shall speak to you next time. Bye. Thank you for listening to Rockabye Revenue. I hope this episode has left you with some fresh ideas and bundles of motivation. If you enjoyed this episode, do make sure you click subscribe so you never miss an installment. And if you found this episode useful, I'd love you forever if you leave a 5-star review, helping this podcast reach the ears of more of the helpers in this world. And remember, keep changing lives. See you next time.